If any artist epitomized the wild, untamed persona of a rock star, it was Jim Morrison. As the iconic frontman of The Doors, Morrison is remembered not just for his groundbreaking contributions to music, but also for his struggles with alcoholism, substance abuse, and the provocative antics. These are the wildest Jim Morrison stories. Public indecency. In March 1969, The Doors performed at the overcrowded Dinner Key Auditorium in Miami, a venue far from ideal for a rock show. It's a swamp and it's a yuck, a horrible kind of place, a seaplane hangar, and 14,000 people are packed in there, and they're sweaty, recalled keyboardist Ray Manzarek. When Jim Morrison finally took the stage, he was intent on giving the audience a dose of raw, unfiltered psychedelic West Coast shamanism and confrontation. During the chaotic performance, Morrison lifted his shirt and teased the crowd, asking if they wanted to see more. His antics, combined with a lamb brought on stage, simulated acts with guitarist Robbie Krieger, and Morrison stealing a police officer's hat, incited the audience into a frenzy. The chaos escalated to the point where the crowd stormed the stage. Morrison was subsequently arrested and charged with indecent exposure, among other offenses. Although it was never proven that Morrison actually exposed himself, the incident haunted his legacy. Morrison passed away in 1971 before the legal case was resolved. Decades later, in 2010, he was officially pardoned. Manzarek remained adamant that Morrison never committed the act he was accused of.
Switching girls. Jim Morrison allegedly bore such a striking resemblance to his close friend January Jansen that people often confused the two. According to Jansen, the pair would sometimes book adjoining hotel rooms and devise a code for swapping partners. If one grew bored with the woman he was with, he'd claim he was stepping out for ice and slam the door twice. Upon hearing the signal, the other would do the same, and they'd switch rooms and companions. Jansen even claimed that when he wore leather pants similar to Morrison's signature style, women were unable to tell them apart. Disorderly conduct. In November 1969, Jim Morrison and his friend Tom Baker boarded a flight to Phoenix, settling into first class. The pair quickly got drunk and caused a commotion, prompting warnings from both the flight attendants and the captain. Despite these warnings, their unruly behavior continued, and they were arrested at the airport gate upon landing in Phoenix. Morrison faced charges of drunk and disorderly conduct and interfering with the operation of an aircraft. However, the case never resulted in a conviction. Making out with a fan. The Doors were about to perform in New Haven, Connecticut, in December of 1967, when Jim Morrison decided to engage in a pre-show make-out session with a fan. The two were in a dressing room shower when police encountered the couple and asked them to leave, not realizing who they were talking to. Morrison angrily refused before being maced in return. But the show went on, and Morrison took the opportunity to get revenge on the cops from his spot on stage. Calling them little blue men, he told the audience the story in an obscenity-laden rant, and as they began to riot, he was ushered off stage, becoming the first person to ever be arrested in the middle of a performance. F your mother. In his notebooks, Jim Morrison confessed that he despised performing Light My Fire, a sentiment rooted in the fact that he had little involvement in its creation. The song, mostly written by guitarist Robbie Krieger, became the Doors' breakout hit, much to Morrison's frustration. Morrison's friend January Jansen recalled a particularly infamous moment during a concert when Morrison asked the audience what they wanted to hear next. When a fan requested Light My Fire, Morrison allegedly responded with an obscene remark, F your mother. By sheer coincidence, the audience that night included several municipal auditorium managers who were in town for a conference. Shocked by Morrison's behavior, they collectively decided to ban the Doors from performing at their venues in the future. Jumping off a building. During a November 1968 concert at a Phoenix fairground, Jim Morrison incited the audience into such a frenzy that chaos erupted. Chairs flew across the venue, forcing the Doors to dodge the projectiles and retreat to their dressing room for safety. After hiding for a while, the band managed to escape out the back door. As Morrison and his friend January Jansen fled in a Rolls-Royce, the chaos followed them. A devoted female fan took things to an extreme, diving off the roof of a two-story building and landing on the car's hood. Despite the dramatic scene and the presence of police escorts, no arrests were made. Morrison, ever the enigmatic figure, brought the woman to a hotel where he and Jansen checked her in, adding yet another wild tale to his infamous legacy. Jumping off. When Jim Morrison heard that another band's lead singer was attempting to build a reputation by mimicking his persona, he decided to see it for himself. Accompanied by his friend Michael Bedard, Morrison went to the iconic Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles. According to Bedard, the evening quickly turned chaotic, fueled by heavy drinking and Morrison's growing irritation as the wannabe frontman performed. Morrison began heckling the band from the balcony, and as his frustration escalated, he lost his balance and tumbled over the railing, landing on a table about 8 feet below. Unfortunately for Morrison, the table was occupied by a group of record executives. The fall sparked a fistfight, leading to Morrison and Bedard being unceremoniously thrown out of the venue. To top it all off, the copycat singer was reportedly mortified when he learned it was Jim Morrison himself who had been heckling him. Passing out. In August 1970, Eleanor Broff stepped out of her West Hollywood home to retrieve her morning paper, only to find a man passed out on her porch. When her attempts to wake him failed, she called the police. Upon their arrival, the officers identified the uninvited guest as none other than Jim Morrison, who had apparently drunk himself into such a stupor that he ended up wandering into her neighborhood and collapsing. Morrison was arrested for public drunkenness, but didn't spend long in custody. He was released after posting a modest $25 bail, urinating wherever. Jim Morrison's penchant for public urination became so infamous that Barney's Beanery, a popular restaurant and bar in Los Angeles, commemorated one of his most notorious incidents with a plaque. The story goes that Morrison, in one of his drunken antics, urinated not just in the vicinity of the bar, but directly on it. Being fired. From May to August of 1966, the Doors served as the house band at Whiskey A Go-Go, playing 2 sets every night. The combination of heavy drinking and drug experimentation often resulted in wild and unpredictable performances, with Jim Morrison at the center of many spectacles. At times, he was so intoxicated or stoned that he would fall off the stage mid-performance. On August 21st, during the band's first set, Morrison was notably absent, and the Doors performed without him. During their break, they found Morrison in a hotel room, high on acid and wearing nothing but cowboy boots and his underwear. Despite his state, they managed to get him back on stage for the second set, where he famously improvised a disturbing reference to Oedipus during the end, detailing what he would like to do to his mother and father. The next day, the Doors were fired from their gig at Whiskey A Go-Go, marking the end of their tenure as the house band. Pending paternity suits, Jim Morrison met Pamela Corson in 1965, and the two began a passionate relationship that would last until his death. In addition to his relationship with Corson, Morrison had other romantic entanglements, including a non-legal marriage to Patricia Keneally. The two were married in a Celtic pagan hand-fasting ceremony, and Keneally often referred to herself as his wife. However, Keneally claimed that when she became pregnant, Morrison became really cold, leaving her feeling rejected. She speculated that his distant behavior may have been influenced by the 20 paternity suits he had allegedly pending at the time, suggesting a possible fear of fatherhood or the consequences of his past relationships.